My name is Gefion Thurma. I am the technical coordinator of the IMPETUS project, and I'm leading one part of the open call. And I will try and maneuver us through this webinar today. Can we move to the next slide? Thank you. So this is the first of two webinars for this open call in 2024 for the IMPETUS project. The webinars are recorded and they will be made available online for anyone who can't join us or for anyone who wants to go back and look at some of the responses to questions. For best functionality, you should use Microsoft Teams Desktop because that will give you the whole functionality, including the Q&A. It says here microphones and cameras are deactivated. Something has gone wrong there. I apologize for that. So we will mute people as they come in if they don't do it themselves. Please use the Q&A feature to ask your questions. We will probably not be able to monitor the whole chat. So please use Q&A for any questions you want to answer. And all questions will be answered after the presentation. So we'll give you a run through of IMPETUS, the accelerator call and the call for the prize. And then we will take questions for all of those combined at the end. Okay. So moving to the next slide, our agenda for today is we're going to give you a brief overview of what IMPETUS is and what the IMPETUS Open Call is. Then we will do a deep dive into the IMPETUS Accelerator part of the call, and then another one into the European Union Prize for Citizen Science. And then we'll have questions and answers combined for both of those at the end. The whole webinar is scheduled for 1.5 hours. That should be more than enough time. And afterwards, there's other routes to get questions to us as well, which we'll touch on. The team today, I already said, my name is Gefion Thurma, and I have with me my colleagues from Electronica, Andrew Newman and Pablo Alonso. Hello. So Andrew and Pablo will present the prize to you later. But first, let me kick off with what is IMPETUS in the first place? IMPETUS is a coordination and support action for citizen science, and it's focused on diversity, impact, and inclusion in citizen science. We do two main things. We fund and support new and established citizen science initiatives, and alongside the funding and support, that means we provide training and resources to become more inclusive, more participatory, and create more impact out of the citizen engagement that you do. With a focus on sustainable development goals in the European Green Deal, but also going somewhat beyond that. And then we also award the European Union Prize for Citizen Science to recognize outstanding projects and their contribution to science and society. So this call is about both of those things, and this webinar will explain how each of the processes for either of those applications work. If you move on one slide. So we have, just to make this visual, IMPETUS at the top. That is the overarching project running this call. We have the accelerator where you can get different types of grants for kickstarting and sustaining projects, and I will explain what that means in a moment. And then you have the European Prize for Citizen Science, where you have the grant prize and then two sub-prizes, if you will, for diversity and digital communities. And then you also have honorable mentions. Again, we will explain more about what that means later. First, let me move on to just go quickly through what we mean by citizen science, because we're quite aware that this can be a contested term. What we mean by citizen science is the public participating in scientific research activities when citizens actively contribute to science. That is really important to us. All projects have to have a view to contributing to science, to contribute knowledge, analysis, data, whatever the case may be, ideally all of those. And that can mean a range of activities. And you can read more about that and exactly what we mean on our website and in our guide for applicants. But really the crucial element is that projects have to have the intention to contribute to research, to produce new knowledge, and for their activities to be carried out by and with participating citizens. Move on, just because we had some questions about this last year and wanted to be really clear. What we mean by a citizen science initiative, so the initiatives that can apply for either part of our open call, are specific projects. So we're looking at, this is a range of examples. It can be citizens engaged in environmental science or social science or digital humanities. We're not limiting this call to any specific subject area. You can apply from any area. It can be initiatives that incorporate the EXA citizen science criteria. It can be science and research communication, where it's about contributing to research. So all of these things are possible. What's important is that activities are implemented by a diverse set of organizations and individuals, and that we cannot provide general support. So if you say, I am an organization and I do citizen science in general, so I would like some general funding, that is not possible. So you will need to apply with a specific project for either of the parts of the call. Next slide. And this brings us to a deep dive, as announced, into the IMPETUS Accelerator. So just to give you a brief overview of what we offer and what that means. Joining the IMPETUS Accelerator, so if your application is successful, will mean that you implement a 7-month project between June 2024 and January 2025. The idea is that in that 7-month time period, you will probably do about 6 months worth of work, because we've extended it from 6 to 7 months to allow for things like Christmas. So we're aware that there will be some breaks, but that's why it's 7 months. Depending on what kind of grant you apply for, you can get up to 20,000 euros. So it's 20,000 for kickstarting grants for projects that are new, and 10,000, up to 10,000 for established projects with a sustaining grant. So this is a project that is already there and wants to extend or expand or do something new with an existing community. In that process, we will assign you a mentor to guide you through the entire thing from day one when you join us to the final day when you have your final review. You will have a mentor at your side who can help you throughout that whole thing. In that period, we also provide extensive training and support for whatever the case may be that your project needs. I can't promise that we will be able to provide everything, but we will provide a large training program that covers every aspect of citizen science and data and ethics and impact and all the rest of it. And we may add to that depending on what the cohort that we recruit requires. We will also arrange regular meetings across projects to enable peer learning. So it's not just that you learn from us in the accelerator, you also learn from each other. So what I would like you to consider when you apply for the call is that you should not just think about what can the money do for you, also think about what can the support program do for you. And if you want to get an impression of what has been funded last year, this being our second open call, you can find the profiles of those projects on our website. And I would urge you to have a look at them to get a feeling for what Impetus is looking for. Moving on one slide, just to recap a little bit of what you will have to do. So this is what I just shown you is what we will do for you, but there's also some things that you will have to do when you join. So you will have to implement a project. You will have to attend trainings and project meetings. You will have to regularly check in with your mentor, provide pictures and text about your project, just so that we can talk about you successfully and help you spread the word. You should consider allocating some budget to outreach activities, because we want you to talk to other people about your project as well. You need to acknowledge the funding, participate in impact assessment activities. Again, there will be training about that. Present your progress at a midterm report or at a midterm point. And then at the end, you need to submit a formal report, an impact assessment report, create a video and an article about your project. Those are currently being published on our website from the last cohort. So again, you can see what that looks like, and attend an interview and a final review meeting. So those are your obligations when you are selected. Now let me get into what can be selected. We have 3 challenges in this open call. The first one, if you move to the next slide, is about sustainable lifestyle. So this is very much focused on sustainable development goals, and specifically on goals number 2, 3, and 12. And under those goals, we're looking at 3 subtopics. Food, so any project that looks at fair and sustainable food production, access to safe food, cost of living is also actively included in that. And then the second subtopic is mobility, where we look at things like active travel, so walking or cycling, but also sustainable transport, reducing pollution and improving air quality as a result of those. And then lastly, we're looking at waste, so the use and management of natural resources, circularity and recycling, and reducing consumption and waste in the process. So those are the 3 topics that are possible to submit under the first challenge. You should actively contribute to at least one of the indicators of the Sustainable Development Goals. That is explained in more detail and also linked in our guide for applicants and the challenge itself, so you can have a look at the details for that in that documentation. The second challenge, which was created by our Impetus Citizen Panel, is about justice and equity. And here we are looking at 2 key challenges that have an impact on justice and equity in society. One being climate resilience. And what we're looking for here is ways to improve existing responses to the effects of climate change. So it's not necessarily about measuring the effect of climate change, but looking at what we can actually do about it, including effects that climate change has on vulnerable groups. And the second topic we're looking at is health and inequalities in health, including what causes them, so why are there inequalities, and also promoting health through scientific research and health literacy. So there can be an educational aspect there. The third challenge, which is new this year, is focused on citizen science for and with communities. Now, this is not a topical challenge, so this is not research into communities. This is specifically about research with communities. We are not putting a topic limitation on this, so you can apply with any topic, but you have to apply with a bottom-up project. So it needs to be a project that is developed and led by citizen scientists. And in order to evidence that, you will need to provide a letter of support from your community that explains how the community has developed and will be supporting this project. Because this is a very open topic, we are looking for projects that are truly exceptional. So I'm not saying don't apply, but please consider whether your project is truly exceptional or whether it would fit into any of the other challenges. Under this challenge, we will only fund up to 5 projects. So it will be fairly competitive. So please look at all of the challenges and select which one works best for you. And don't just go for the open one because it's easiest to explain. So those are the challenges. And if you fall into those topics, you can apply for the accelerator. Looking at eligibility, there are some criteria that cut across all of the challenges, so and all of the grant types. Every applicant needs to be an individual, a legal entity, or a consortium of both. And during the application process, you will have to define exactly what your combination is. All projects need to be located and delivered in the European research area. If you want to know about specific countries, again, there's a list on our website that you can refer to. But it's important to recognize that both the institutions or individuals who apply, as well as the project delivery, have to be in these countries. So you cannot apply from, say, Germany and deliver a project in the US because the US is not part of the European research area. All applications must respond to one of the challenges. I guess so far this is obvious. The application form itself can be no more than 4 pages long, and it must be submitted alongside a signed declaration of honor. Again, the template for that is available on our website. and must be submitted before the deadline noon on the 14th of March. Now, if you apply for a specific grant type, which you will have to, if you want to go for a kickstarting grant, which is worth 20,000 euros, you have to apply with a project that is no more than 6 months old. You can already have started putting things together. You can already have started exploring the topic, and we expect that you probably would have. But you shouldn't have an established community or data collection procedures that are already in place and active. So we are expecting these to be new projects. For sustainable projects, sustaining projects, we expect that you will have established processes and an engaged community already. So we will want to see what your processes are, what your community is. These things need to be in place so that you can basically hit the ground running. You will also need to provide some initial evidence of impact. So the application form will ask you to provide some evidence of outputs that you have created, impact that you have already achieved. And then lastly, as I just said, for the third challenge, if you want to be eligible, you have to submit this letter of support for you. Again, there's a template for that. So you do not have to conjure this out of thin air, but you do have to submit it if you want to be eligible. We will desk reject proposals that do not meet these criteria. So you will not get a review if you don't meet the eligibility criteria for your respective grant or challenge type. Moving on to the application form itself. Each application covers 4 areas, which are assessed individually and in conjunction, obviously. So the 4 areas are the idea, the implementation, including the budget, the team and the community that support this, and the impact that this project can have or is likely to have. Every one of these areas will get an individual score on a 5-point scale, and up to 92 projects with the highest points and no less than 3 points in each area will be invited for interview. So if you get a high score, but you scored 0 in one of the areas, then we can't invite you. If you scored 3 across, you could be invited, but it would depend on how many other people have scored higher than you. So the total interviews we will do is 92. And if you want more details on those criteria, there's a whole list of what they are and how they work in the guide for applicants. Just to continue on the application form again, because we had some confusion about this last year, so I want to be very clear about that. You cannot change the template. You download the template, we make it available as a Word document. So you need to download a copy, fill it in. You cannot change the margins. You cannot change the font size. It needs to be 11-point and single-spaced. You cannot fill the application form with links to external documents that reviewers are supposed to read. Reviewers will read the 4 pages and what's in your application form on the submission platform and nothing more. So if you want to put links, you can, but we will not look at them. The budget must be for 7 months for the whole period and corresponding to the grant type you apply for. So if you apply for a kickstarting grant, your budget should add up to 20,000 euros. And if you apply for a sustaining grant, your budget should add up to 10,000 euros. Please do not send us applications that ask for more because we can't give it to you and we may desk reject your proposal as a result. You can include visual charts, mock-ups, screenshots, but please be aware that they must remain readable. So if they are squeezed too tightly and we can't read what's on them, then you've just wasted space in your application. And then all proposals must be submitted on our online submission platform as a PDF, which I'll go into in a second. As for the accelerator budget, there are certain things that are eligible and ineligible. Funding can be spent on salaries, and we would actively encourage you to include salaries, because if you run a project like this with deadlines and trainings and things that you have to comply with, running it entirely with volunteers is possible, but somewhat risky and also highly demanding. So I would really urge you to consider including at least a portion of salaries. You can spend the funds on equipment, on consumables, on travel. You can subcontract, but not for major tasks of the application. So please consider, if you want to do subcontracting, whether it might be worth including the institution you're trying to subcontract to in the consortium instead. That might be the better option. And you can also add an indirect expenditure of 25% of total costs, excluding subcontracting. We will not be nitty-gritty about the budgets at application stage. So if there's like minor errors, that won't disqualify you. What would disqualify you is if you ask for 40,000 instead of 20. Okay, so the big tickets item is what counts. The nitty-gritty we can figure out later when we go into negotiations after you are selected. But for the accelerator application, we need to understand where you want to spend the money. Moving on, just to give you a brief overview of the submission platform. I apologize, this is somewhat small, but again, you can look it up on our website and have a look at the form itself. When you come in, you need to create an EasyChair account if you haven't got one already. That's a fairly easy sign-up process, and it's an independent platform. It doesn't belong to Impetus, so please be aware of that. You need to put in authors, which are the individual applicants, and we would ask you to add that if you're applying as an individual or as one organization, one person is good. If you want to add multiple organizations, please add one author from each organization so that we can reach all of you. You need to put in a title and keywords and some indication what your project is about. Then select what kind of grant you're applying for, and that will determine a lot of the eligibility criteria I just took you through. So this has to line up. And then moving on, you have a couple of questions about your relationship to citizen science. Pablo, if you want to move on. And sustainable development goals that your project may or may not respond to. If you don't select any of these, not all of the questions are mandatory, so don't panic. The idea is not that everyone does everything, but that if you do one of those things, that you can tell us. Then we ask you to give a minor assessment of your potential impact. And then you upload your application documents. So that needs to be the application form and the declaration of honor, and only for the third challenge, a letter of support. Please don't go away and provide letters of support for other challenges. We will not look at them. They are mandatory for the third challenge, but they are not required and not invited for the first two challenges. So in overview, how to apply for the accelerator. Check that you're eligible, and there's a handy little tool on our website that guides you through that, where you answer a couple of questions and it pops out with what you can apply for. You download the call documents and you read them carefully, specifically the guide for applicants and the FAQ, which holds a lot of the detail that you need to be successful. You fill in the application form, you head to EasyChair, you enter your details on the form and submit it, and then you wait for confirmation. The platform will send you an automated confirmation that your application has been received. If you do not receive that within, say, 30 minutes of having submitted, please get in touch with us. And then lastly, just to give you an overview of the timeline, the open call ends on the 14th of March, as we said. Between the 15th and the 21st, we will conduct eligibility checks. So that is where we sort out projects that are applications that aren't eligible. The expert review will happen between March and April. All the interviews, up to 92, as I said, will happen between the 15th and the 26th of April. We will give you a slot. We will not be able to negotiate slots because we have to schedule 92 interviews in 2 weeks. So please be aware that if your application is successful for that stage, something will drop in your diary between the 11th and 14th April, and then you will have to attend that slot. The final selection will happen on the 29th April, so that's when you should know whether or not you've been successful. And if you are successful after that, we will move into a negotiation phase where you discuss with us exactly what you do. We figure out some of the details. Part of that phase will be an online boot camp. That is half days. It's just a couple of hours between the 3rd of June and the 14th of June. And that will take you through creating your work plan for the 7-month project that we are going into. And that project will kick off on the 17th of June. I will leave it there for now and hand over to Pablo and Andrew to talk you through the prize.
Hi, I'm Andrew from Ars Electronica. I'm joined by my colleague, Pablo. So Ars Electronica is responsible for delivering the European Union Prize for Citizen Science. This prize is aiming to sort of like celebrate advances in knowledge that empowers civil society in the development of the future. It really seeks to kind of look at citizen science from all angles and not just in terms of research impact, but also sort of communication of science, engagement with citizens. And this is all outlined in the criteria, which I'll get into a bit further. So what we see here is the prize structure. So it's delivered every year. There's a new independent jury, a new one each year that sort of evaluates all the submissions and selects these prizes. There's the grand prize, which is 60,000 euros. This is the winner, the best of everything. There's no specific categories or topics that it's related to. And then there are the 2 category awards. This is the Diversity and Collaboration Award and the Digital Communities Award. Both those are 20,000 euro. And alongside that, we have 27 honorary mentions, which have no prize money value, but we try to sort of represent all of the great citizen science initiatives that are going on across the European research area. So I just skip to the next slide. You can read more about the description of the prize on our website, and I hope you have already checked it out. So I would just kind of skip this, Pablo, next one, and go into detail on the award criteria of the project. So each of these award criteria have the same value of 5 points each. And the main award criteria is to be interpreted by the jury members. So the sub-criteria underneath is not necessarily like required or sort of it's not marked according to the sub-criteria. These are suggestions to the jury and to you about how the sort of quality will be measured within this larger criteria. So for instance, with scientific quality, we're looking at like the contribution to knowledge, new research fields and transdisciplinarity, open science and fair data, best practice, quality and robustness of research methodology. So this is like really looking at the scientific research aspect of the project, if it's like robust, if it's like clear and well done and has produced new knowledge. Doesn't need to be sort of nature articles or big publications, but it just has to demonstrate that it's been doing research. The second is social quality and policy impact. So this is looking at the aspects, specifically policy and social impact that are prioritized by the European Union, but like more generally, social innovation, community building, like environmental impact and sustainability. So this is looking at as described, the social impact that the projects have don't necessarily need to be leading to changes in policy, but that is also not a bad thing if it does. And then the third is the diversity and collaboration. So this is looking at like how diverse the partnerships and stakeholders are involved, how the community is engaged, the quality and amount of citizen science involvement, the different disciplines involved, so transdisciplinarity, and like the sustainable collaboration, like if it's building bigger models for collaborating beyond the scope of the project, and also importantly, gender diversity, social inclusion, cultural diversity. Next slide. Communication dissemination. So this is, it's got the same value as all of the other criteria, but this one's quite important as well because this is also evident in how you communicate the project in the submission. So like the quality and clarity of communication to the public, the quality of community outreach activities, STEAM and science educational aspects. Doesn't necessarily need to have science education aspects of it, but these are things that could contribute to this criteria. The next one is innovation and creativity. So I think this is kind of speaks for itself, but it's like if there's like creative scientific methods or ways of engaging the community, artistic approaches, participatory approaches, and yeah, innovation in terms of technology or methods as well. And the sixth point is the European dimension. So related to what I was speaking earlier in terms of social and policy impact, there is also this extra European dimension, and this is looking at social and policy impact on areas that are prioritized by the European Union. So this is the Green Deal, the new European Bauhaus, open science, and yeah, European research area more generally. So this all relates to kind of the policies that of the European Union and how it contributes to that as well. We'll go to the next slide. So now kind of, as I said, the main prize, the grand prize, has got no specific like topic or content. So it's really just the most excellent submission that is across all of those criteria. But there are also the 2 category awards. These 2 category awards are still evaluated in the same criteria, and you don't need to do a separate submission for them. So it's only one submission, and you're evaluated for all of the different prizes, including the honorary mentions. But there's a certain sort of thematic focus for the 2 category prizes. So diversity and collaboration is, as I said, is really related to that award criteria on diversity and collaboration, social inclusivity, community engagement, transdisciplinarity. So all of those areas, like projects that really excel at that. And the next category award, the Digital Communities Award. So this is very much working on projects that work either on digital transformation topics, like as an area of research, or for instance, use digital tools in an innovative way to do citizen science. So this is kind of looking at mainly the criteria of social quality and policy impact, but these are projects that are like working either on the topic of digital transformation or using digital tools in an innovative and creative way. Next slide, please. So now I'll get into the eligibility. So the eligibility, one of the main questions we always get is in terms of the eligibility of countries. This is quite a complicated topic, but essentially it's what is described as the European research area, and the European research area at this stage is all countries that are associated to Horizon Europe or are negotiating an association with Horizon Europe. And the negotiating an association with Horizon Europe is according to how the EU defines it. So a list of all of the eligible countries is available on the IMPETUS website, but just to summarize, it's not necessarily just European Union countries, but, you know, for instance, also includes the UK and Norway and not Switzerland, unfortunately. But so what I would say is that the project is open to citizen science initiatives that take place in the this area. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the applicant or the authors of the project need to be European Union or need to be a resident in that in a European relevant eligible country, but the activities, the project needs to take place in this area in some way. So that's quite important. So it could, like, often a lot of projects will be like transnational collaborations, and just because one of the partners is from Switzerland or from the USA doesn't mean that the citizen science initiative is not eligible. So it's if it takes place in this area. So that kind of clarified that, I hope. And so the applicants can be natural persons, group of persons, legal entities like organizations or universities. But like if it's a group of applicants or community initiative, one authorized representative has to be nominated to submit the application. All projects that are ongoing, completed, or far enough along in their design for the jury to be able to assess the quality impact. The project needs to be either currently running, or if it's finished within the last 2 years, or if it finished more than 2 years ago, it needs to have had a significant update since then. That could also include like a publication as well, so not necessarily the activities. But what's very important to clarify, unlike the accelerator, this is for existing citizen science initiatives. So it's not the prize is not a grant application for potential citizen science initiatives. It's for projects that have already happened, and recent projects at that. The next slide. So in terms of other eligibility requirements, projects that are funded by the EU are eligible, but also projects that are not funded by the EU are eligible. So it's not a requirement. This is just often with European funding, you can't apply if it's already received European funding. So that doesn't exclude it. If you've participated in the accelerator program, you're still eligible. If you've previously submitted, you're still eligible. And if you previously submitted and won an honorary mention, you're still eligible for the main prizes, but not honorary mention. And yeah, I don't think any of our 3 main prize winners are here, but if you've won one of the 3 prize winners, you're not eligible at all. And also any sort of initiatives or organizations that are under EU sanctions are obviously not eligible to apply as well. And next page. So again, the admissibility, you need to submit online, and my colleague Pablo will go into the details of how to do that. You will receive a entry confirmation after you've submitted via email, so it's very important to make sure you get that. Otherwise, your submission might not have actually gone through, so double check that. All submissions must be in English. Submissions in other language will not be evaluated. And all submissions have to be received before 23:59, so just before midnight on March 11th. And there's no fee to enter the competition. So I would now ask my colleague Pablo to kind of introduce how to apply in a more practical sense. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. So now we're going to talk about the application form that you're going to be to submit and how to do it. The most important thing first is enter in our website and check first you start the application. If you are eligible, create the account, complete all the application, upload videos, slides, and assets, and click in the submit green button. That means that everything that should be a must in the application is complete. 1 second. So the submission material, here we are putting what is gonna be asked in the application form for you. We have the title of the initiative, the location, the time frame. We have an abstract, so it's a short overview of your project. Then we have the description, which you can go more in details and think about the abstract as an open statement, no? And you don't need to here to duplicate the text between the abstract and the description. Then, as we were mentioned before, most recent year of the project was updated or implemented. Here's going to be a drop-down menu, and you're going to have the 22, 23, and 2024, the year to select. Then we go to the research question. Here we are asking for the impacts or the aims of the project, and you can phrase it, this part of the application as what type of research or what you are looking for. Then we go to initiative of the team. Here are the members of the initiative, organizations or individuals that took part in your initiative, so you can describe a bit the role. Then we have a new question that we didn't have last year, is the number of citizens engaged here. Then the next question would be, how will the prize money benefit your community? We are not asking about a budget here, as maybe in the accelerator is request. Here is how you describe, in case of you win, the prize money is going to benefit your community, no?
I might just interrupt here because you skipped the citizen engagement. But yeah, in terms of the prize money benefiting your community, so as Pablo said, it's not a budget, so you don't need to do an application. This is just to make sure, to kind of see that it's going back into the community in some way. So it's just to check that it's that it's like they're not going to be spent on a new car or anything. But we don't follow that up, so there's no checking on how the prize money is spent. But we just need to make sure how the prize money will contribute to the project or the community in a way. So it's not a budget proposal like a normal grant. This is just a kind of a check to see that it's going back into the community. And by the community, I mean sort of the people involved in the project and the project itself. And sorry, and under the number of citizens engaged, we also have the question citizen engagement. So this is like how the citizens were engaged. This is to describe like how they engaged, what type of methods were used, at what points of the research process they were engaged. So that's where you describe that in a short description. I'll just hand you back over to Pablo then. Sorry to drop.
Okay, no worries. Then we have a URL, then the credits. So if you want to acknowledge the people that were part in the project, if there is any, we have also support received from here. Could be something financial, but non-financial that support your project. Then the keyword, which is something really important that describes your project. And then we have software and hardware that, as Andrew was mentioned before, will be really beneficial if you are gonna get maybe the digital communities award. So here you can describe all this innovation technology, the AI tools, or if you develop a website in the project. Then the next part
I might just also add here to emphasize that things like software and hardware and credits and support received from, these aren't things you need to answer. It's only if you have these things, so you can leave them blank as well. So as you see, all of the things within asterisk are things that are required, but these other things are just sort of additional things if it's relevant to you. The research discipline, for instance, is not so much going to affect your submission. It's just good for us to kind of like track where most of the citizen science projects are coming from.
Then the application regarding the applicants is about the individuals or the group of creators. So here we are going to ask you for more details, more as organization or as an individual. And then we have a part to upload material. No, the maximum would be 15 assets. But we actually encourage maybe not to put 15 assets there, but it would be really beneficial for the jury if you maybe create a short video, respond all the main actually question that we are asking in this application form. So Andrew, I don't know if you want to add anything else here regarding the submission material.
Yeah, so yeah, we definitely recommend a short video of either 3 to 5 minutes or as slides in PDF of like 3 to 5 slides or pages. So these things are quite important as additional material. Then you also have the option to provide more supporting material other than that main one, the video or the slides. These could be photos, like journal articles, but these things won't be looked at unless the project's made it to the very final round. So only that one asset, because the jury members are not going to be like reading lots of scientific papers and things as well. So this is more just to kind of support your material when you get to that final round. But that main thing that's looked at is either this video or slideshows that are submitted.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm gonna go live for the application. So let me 1 second to stop here. So what are you going to see when you are in the application and you already have an account is this profile. And then what you need to do is add your project, you add the title. I'm going to put price here, and then you go next. What are you going to see is what we already mentioned, no? Like all the fields that you need to submit, no? And then you just need to complete everything. As you could see here is what we asked: description, research question, initiative team, member of citizen engaged. No, so you have here everything that you need to submit to our prize, and then at the bottom you have the creator and the creator group. So the same, you need to upload and complete all the form, and when everything is ready, you are going to see in the submission button, because now it's incomplete, as you could see here, you are going to see the submission button in green. At that moment, everything should be complete. And it's really important, actually, if you get an email, no, as happened with the accelerator, that says that your application is accepted. And if you don't get that email, please contact us, because that means something went wrong and maybe your application is not finalized. So as the same as what we have in the accelerator. Sorry now, because that started, so I need to go a bit quick. I don't know why this started, so sorry for that. And then the next part is going to be actually the timeline for the citizen prize. So wait a second, I'm going to that in a minute. It's okay, this is the prize.
I might just also add here, like in terms of this section on creators, so these are sort of the authors or like the main team members. It could be an organization like a consortium or a group, and you can add short bios here and information about them in this creators section. So you also have the question on the initiative team, so you don't need to necessarily duplicate that by writing bios of everyone in the initiative team. That's more focusing on like how the project was set up and what type of roles were done in the project, and you can kind of write the bios and backgrounds in this creator section later on when you submit.
So then we have here the timeline. As already was mentioned by Andrew, the deadline is the 11th of March, and we're going to have a week of eligibility checks and admissibility criteria. So in case that something is not clear for us, we might contact you to have any answers regarding our questions. Then after that period, there is going to be this jury meeting when they are going to check all the applications, and it's an independent jury that is going to do that. And each of the jury members are going to review 2 applications. So just to let you know that 2 juries are going to check one of the
applications. No, the other way around. Each submission will be reviewed by two jury members.
Sorry. And then we have the final jury selection, which is going to be in Linz from the 25th of April to the 28th of April. And just to mention here that all the submissions that score higher than the threshold of 20 out of 30, they will be reevaluated in this final process by the jury members. And then by June, we will notify the winners. And we're going to have an award ceremony in September during the Electronica Festival that is going to be from the 4th to the 8th of September this year. And I think that's it. Anything else you want to add, Andrew, here?
No, I think we're ready for questions, which is the most exciting part of this webinar.
Indeed, thank you both very much for that. I know that we have a bunch of questions in the chat and in the Q&A, and my colleagues have already been busy transferring one to the other. Apologies that Teams doesn't quite seem to do what we wanted to today. So we will start with a couple of questions from the Q&A, but if you want to ask a question in person, please raise your hand in Teams. There should be a button at the top of the screen that says raise with the symbol of a hand. So please put your hand up and we will get to you. Brooke and Neil, could I ask you to just throw us like the first 3 questions from the Q&A maybe?
Yep, sorry, just trying to unmute myself. So first question in the Q&A is, thank you for the presentation. I have 2 questions. The first one is around new, I'll do these one at a time. So the first question is around new projects. I have a non-profit that's older than 6 months, has a community, but our activities are not yet focused on citizen science. If the project proposal is not yet running, is it considered new? Is it the age of the project or is it the organization itself?
Yes, that's an easy one. So that's what I mentioned earlier when we spoke about what is a citizen science initiative. What we fund or what we award prizes to are projects or initiatives. So if you have an organization and that organization is X months old, that doesn't matter. It matters what you do in relation to the specific citizen science project you want to do. So if you haven't done citizen science project before, you're probably eligible for a kickstarting grant.
And then the second part of that question is regarding location and delivery, can we do that but also have remote participants from people outside of the European research area, or that's outside the scope? In our case, we work with one country in the European research area and 7 countries outside of that area. Can we focus the project on the one ERA project, but it will be more rich if we could add participation from other countries too that will be outside? Would that be outside of the scope or not?
That is possible. So the project cannot be based in or delivered solely in a country outside of the ERA. But if you have a project based in one of the eligible countries and at least part of it is delivered there, then if part of it is delivered elsewhere, if that makes the project richer, that is acceptable. But you will have to explain that in your application form.
There's actually one other question that's kind of an extension of that, which is, would it be a disadvantage to involve just one country from the European research area, not several?
No, we don't select for that. We don't select for consortia. It is absolutely acceptable for you to apply as one individual or one organization from one country. There's no requirement to even have 2 countries, let alone more than that, just because we also know that those kinds of collaborations are very intense, and we're only asking for a 7-month project on a 10K or 20K euro budget. So no, you do not have to include multiple countries. You can do 1, you can do 2, you can be up to how many you like, but it also still needs to be a feasible project.
I might just add here also another question that I saw in the Q&A, which was for the accelerator. What is a good number of engaged citizens? Is there a lower limit? I would just also answer in relation to this in terms of like the number of consortium partners or researchers as well for the Citizen Science Prize. We're not measuring in terms of quantity. It's about the quality and the meaning and the reason of this. So, for instance, we asked for how many citizens are engaged in the the prize submission platform, but this is just so we can have a clearer understanding of the scope of the project. The winner of the Diversity and Collaboration Diversity Prize last year, for instance, only had 12 citizens actively involved in that project. So it's not a matter of how many are involved. There is no lower limit. It's just about the quality of involvement, and that goes for both like the partners and the citizens as well. Do you want to add anything to that, Gefjun?
Yeah, just to say that is similar for the accelerator. So obviously we would like you to engage the maximum number of citizens that is feasible and that is also sensible for your project. But for some projects, that can mean that you want to involve 3,000 citizens or 300. And for some other projects, it may be that you just focus on working in depth with 5 people. It really depends on who you want to work with, what you want to do with them, what they are going to do. We've had some really successful projects in the last cohort. Again, if you want to check them out on our website, who have only worked with like 10 citizens, and that is perfectly acceptable. That there is no upper or lower limit, but the number that you put in, or sort of the goal that you have, should be realistic for what you can actually deliver in the 7-month. I would go to some. Yeah.
I would just add one thing. I would say there probably is one lower limit, which is 1 citizen involved. So I have had applications before where it's like, I'm a citizen and this is the science I'm doing. So it's kind of, you got to recognize that it's experts engaging non-experts. So for instance, you can't have a team that might include a sort of a musician and be like, this is the citizen involved. But if they're involved as a musician, through their expertise, that's part of the team and not involved as a citizen. So I hope that clarifies this, that when we're talking about citizens, it's like non-experts. Yeah.
Thank you for I think, Andrew, that was a really important point. Thanks for that. I would go to some of the hands we have up now. Domenico,
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, I would like to ask you if the kickstarting projects from the last call are eligible for the prize.
Yes.
Yes. And the second one is about the sustaining. because I would like to apply for a sustaining grant. But you said that this will be very competitive because you will give funds only to 5 projects. Yeah, this is what I catched from you. So I would like to know how many projects for the challenge, the third challenge, the one about the community, with community, etc. I just want to ask you if you consider these 5 projects, including both categories,
Yes.
the kickstarting and sustaining.
Yes. So overall, in this open call, we are looking to fund 41 kickstarting and 10 sustaining projects. So the overarching number of projects in the cohort will be about 50. It might be 2 more or less. That depends very much on the applications we receive. And there will be another open call next year where we will bring the total of projects that we fund to 125. So overall, Impetus funds 100 kickstarting and 25 sustaining projects. Out of that, this year, roughly 50-51. The only limitation we have on what we can fund is those 41 plus 10, and only up to 5 projects in the open challenge about communities. Everything else is open. We have no limitation on which challenge you apply for and whether within the challenge you apply for kickstarting or sustaining grant. That really just depends on what you want to do and what you make out of the topics. So you can apply for a sustaining grant in either of the challenges and for a kickstarting grant, and also all 3 challenges, not a problem. And the only limitation we have is the funding that we have available, and the funding we have is for 100 kickstarting and 25 sustaining projects, and that is just the limit overall. And as I said, for this year, 41 kickstarting, 10 sustaining. I hope that answered that question. Thank you. Marika.
Yes, hi. Thank you for the presentation, for the information provided so far. So I have a question regarding the challenge citizen science for and with communities, because apparently I have the feeling that there is a kind of a controversial information, because the call is mentioning that you are expecting applications demonstrating strong and evident connections with the local community, but at the same time the kickstarted projects or grants should not be in that stage already. So I would like to understand if the 2 information are matching one to another.
Yes, that is a good question. So I see what you mean, and yes, that is correct. What I would say is that it can be a community that is a community, but hasn't as a community done citizen science before. It can be a community group, it can be a local club, it can be anything that practice whether or not they have already done citizen science for the specific topic that they are applying for. So maybe they have done citizen science in a different area, and then now they want to do something new and they apply for a new project. So there are ways how you can, with an existing community, apply for a kickstarting grant. It's about what that community has specifically done on that particular project.
Right, and if it's possible to understand why the limitation to only 5 projects in this specific challenge?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what that question was.
If there is a specific reason for limiting 5 co-funded or funded projects in this specific challenge.
Yes, because A, we have limited funding. B, this is an additional challenge that wasn't originally planned, so we have to keep it somewhat small. And also, we do not want the majority of top projects that we fund to not be in the other challenges that we pose, which are much more at the core of what Impetus does. So it's a project-based decision, but it is a decision.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, that was the last hand we had up. Do we have more questions in the Q&A? Neil, if you want to.
I just need to, sorry, just trying to work out which ones. Help if the mouse cursor didn't keep jumping around the screen. So I think that one's been answered. That one's been answered as well. Someone asked if the slides will be shared later on.
We can share them, but we will also share the whole recording, so you will have that.
And then the next question is about the Accelerator Challenge 3. We're planning a project that aims to involve all Finnish citizens. Would it be possible to apply with such a wide community, or should we define some more specific groups to work with for this call?
I don't know how you would get a letter of support from the entire Finnish population. So I would say you need to be more specific because you cannot fulfill the eligibility criteria for such a project based on what the rules for this call are. So you need to make that more specific.
Another question from the Q&A is, if we have European funding for a project with a citizen science component, could we apply to Impetus to make the citizen science activity more broad so that we can involve more people?
You can do that. You have to be careful because one of the things that's not allowed is double funding. So you cannot fund the same activity with Impetus that you also get funding from elsewhere. If it's genuinely something in addition, then that to me sounds like a good candidate for a sustaining grant.
I might also add here, for instance, if you've got funding for a research project that doesn't have any citizen science component as well, that does not make it ineligible for the kickstarting grant as well. So that's sort of, it's a good motivation to engage citizens with the grant.
Indeed. Thank you, Andrew. Do we have more, Neil?
I think this is possibly the last one. If a project is run by a European organization and engages people online, does it make sense to pin down one or a few project countries, or can the scope be Europe-wide?
The scope can be Europe. You would have to still say where the host of that project is based, because that would be in one of the European countries, presumably. But the project scope in itself can be Europe. That's not a problem.
We've just had another question come in. Sorry, this may be me. My connection's quite slow on the Q&A, unfortunately. For the EU award, is a project eligible if it started more than 2 years ago, although the work is still ongoing? And is it possible to discuss work that took place more than 2 years ago in the bid?
Yes, that's fine. As long as the project is still ongoing, it doesn't matter how long ago it started. So, for instance, there's some projects we had submissions that have been going for a couple of decades. As long as it's still going, it's still eligible as well. And in that, you can also reference work that happened before this time frame as well. But if it's referencing other projects, that's not really relevant. So as Geffen said earlier, we're awarding projects, so not sort of organizations necessarily, but more like initiatives or activities. So we'll be judging on that initiative that's been submitted. It doesn't matter if it includes some activities that happened earlier, as long as there's activities that are happening as part of that initiative within the last 2 years.
Thank you. We have another hand up, and we had a second one that I think we've lost. I think I'm going to take Christian first because I think you had your hand up first originally. So please do ask your question.
Hello, Geffen. Hello, Andrew. Thank you very much for your presentation. Can you hear me? Great. Because I cannot hear you anymore. I don't know why, which is a problem because I want to hear your answers.
So ask your question.
Oh, now I hear you. Yeah, great. Thank you. I had 2 questions. So first, regarding kind of a specification to the last question. So the projects for the competition need to be in the range of the last 2 years. And is that right?
Within the last 2 years, or there's been an update or significant update on that project since in the last 2 years. So, for instance, Some projects might have not had the results published during the project when the activities were taking place, but that might happen a year later. That's still eligible. So it's just that there's activity happening within the last 2 years.
Okay, great. Okay, because we finished last February, but we started 2.5 years before that February. So that's still fine if I get you right.
Yeah, it doesn't
matter
when it's started. It's so, as I said, it could have started like 10 years ago. So we ask basically when was the last time some activity happened, and you can put 24, 23, 22. And if you can't put that activities happened in those last times, then it's not eligible.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. The other question is regarding funding, because I didn't really understand your answer, Gefion, regarding the question of if the funding could be added to other fundings. So I understand you're right that both the starting and the continuing funding, both are only fundings. You cannot have any other money coming from anyone else, or did I misunderstand that?
No, the only limitation is that you cannot fund the same activity twice. So
okay, great. Yeah.
say you already get money from the European Commission to implement a piece of citizen engagement, you could get money from Impetus to make that citizen engagement longer or more intense or engage more citizens. That
Right.
would be possible, but we can't give you more money to do the same thing. So if you have a project already and you have no budget for citizen engagement and you want to add on citizen engagement, that is a good candidate for a kickstarting grant. If you already have funding for some citizen engagement, but you want to engage citizens in a different place, more citizens in the same place, different groups of citizens, that is what a sustaining grant would allow you to do.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I just might also add, there's like one more question I saw in the Q&A related to taxation. How is taxation regulated for salaries? Can, instead of salaries, we also provide kind of fee for co-workers that will provide part of the work, let's say video of editing. So I assume this is for the accelerator, and you want to answer that, Gefion?
Yes, thank you for that. I didn't see that. So I would say that whatever local rules apply for how taxation works in your country applies to this funding. Whether that means that you can just pay a fee to your volunteers for specific parts of work, or whether you have to have a payroll and pay taxes on that for the income, I cannot give a universal answer to that because that is locally within Europe extremely different. So whatever the local rule is for you applies to this as well. We give you 20,000 or 10,000 euros to do a project with. You can use it on salaries and you can use it on fees. From our side, it doesn't make a big difference, but you have to make sure that locally you follow the laws.
I might also add into this as well, because it's slightly relevant to the prize as well. When you win the prize money, that sort of you get paid the prize money, and that is depending on your local laws, can be counted as income as well. So, for instance, you would then need to tax it against your income. So this is why I recommend, for instance, that you have sort of as the main applicant an organization or university, if there is one involved in the project, as that will go, the project money will go to that. But if it goes to an individual, it will be taxed as personal income. And also, yeah, I think that's that. Yep, sorry. Oh, no, one more thing. In terms of receiving the income. So I think this is also relevant to the accelerator as well. So for instance, if there's a citizen science prize that's got 5 consortium partners involved in it, and one of the consortium partners is Swiss or from the United States, that partner cannot receive the prize money. So it has to be paid into an organization that is based within the European research area, and I assume that's the same for the accelerator as well.
Indeed, yes, with the limitation that we cannot fund entities outside of the European research area. So while for the prize, there's a little bit more flexibility, for the accelerator, there is not. We have one more hand up from Marika.
Yes, thank you. Apologies, I forgot 2 questions. The first one was related to the number of applications that are possible, meaning that, for instance, if an organization decided to apply for 2 challenges, is that possible? No, okay.
No. So you can apply, every organization can submit 1 application. So you cannot submit 1 application per challenge or 1 application per grant type. You can submit 1 application and 1 application only. That doesn't mean that you cannot submit an application that in principle would apply to 2 of the challenges. If you do something on a topic that crosses across both of them, that is possible. You will still need to select which one you apply under. But you can cut across challenges, you cannot cut across grant types, and you can only submit 1 application.
Okay, and the same applies if an affiliated researcher decides to submit an application by his own. I mean, completely different. It's an affiliated researcher within the organization, but how this kind of situation can be considered.
You can submit applications as an individual or as an organization. If you submit an application as an organization, then the grant will be paid to the organization when you are successful. If you apply as an individual, the grant would be paid to you. And typically, working at a university myself, that means that you cannot then use the infrastructure, the resources, the software, the hardware from the institution to actually deliver the project. So if you apply as an individual, you have to demonstrate how you are capable of actually delivering the project without that organizational resource.
Right, absolutely clear. And the second question is related to, apologies if I missed this, but I connected a little bit late, regarding the reporting of the grants. Is there a reporting procedure that we have to follow, or is it just, nothing to report at the end?
It's a bit of both. It's the primary mode of operation will be that you have a mentor who supports you throughout the project, but also monitors your progress to some degree. And that would be a check-in point to, if the mentor flags that the project isn't doing anything, then there would be questions. You do have a midterm presentation that you have to give. So 3.5 months into the accelerator, you would have to hold a presentation and show what you've done. And at the end of the project, you will have to provide a written report and some other documentation. The details for that are in the guide for applicants. So if you want to have a look at that and see if that is clear. And then if you have more questions about that, drop us an email.
Thank you. And that is from the quality side. And from the financial side is also a reporting to be done. And this is my last question. Sorry.
The funding is paid in lump sum. So you get 50% at the beginning and 50% at the end. And the 50% at the beginning are dependent on you having signed a valid contract with a work plan. And the funding at the end is dependent on you having submitted what you promised you would submit.
Right. Thank you very much.
I might just interrupt here also in terms of if you can apply more than once. So for the Citizen Science Prize, it's slightly different. So organizations can be involved in as many submissions as they like, or individuals also. Only one submission, one initiative can apply. So you can't apply with the same initiative from different people. So, but if you're involved in multiple projects, that's not a problem at all. So you can be involved in as many submissions as you are actually involved.
Thank you for that, Andrew. Are there more questions in the Q&A, in the chat, or in the room? Doesn't look like it. Neil, did we have anything more in the Q&A?
Just checking one last time. It doesn't look like it. It looks like that's all of the questions that have been asked. Oh, no, I think that's everything.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. In that case, we will end the webinar here for today. Thank you all very much for attending. I hope this was useful. There are more ways to get questions to us. If you come across them later, you can email us. I don't know, Pablo, if you are able to quickly put up that slide again with the email addresses. You can also, for the accelerator specifically, there will be another webinar for both the accelerator and the prize, where you have another opportunity to ask questions. And there are also one-on-one sessions that you can book to ask questions about the accelerator specifically, if email doesn't make sense for you. So these are the email addresses. It's opencall@impetus4cs.eu for questions about the accelerator, citizenscience@ars.electronica.art for the prize, comms@impetus4cs.eu for general questions about the project. But really, if you email any one of them, we will answer you because we internally talk to each other. So try pick the right one, but if you're not sure, just send it to any one of them and we will forward it internally and get a response back to you. Just one question that just popped up in the chat. Can we apply for one of the challenges and then also the prize? Yes, absolutely. Especially if you are applying for a sustaining grant, you will most likely be eligible for both. Do check the eligibility criteria, and there's a little tool on our website where you just answer a couple of questions and then it tells you what you can apply for. But yes, you can absolutely, and we would wholeheartedly invite you to apply for both the prize and the funding. We have very intentionally not set the deadline for the two calls on the same day, so that even if you apply for the prize first, which closes a couple of days earlier, you can still put together an application for the accelerator as well. So please do. All right, then thank you all very much. It was a pleasure talking to you and answering all of your questions. If you have more, do get in touch. We look forward to your applications. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.